I have just 3 things to teach: simplicity, patience, compassion. These 3 are your greatest treasures. Offbeat romantics. INFPs are definitely romantic people, but it's rarely a conventional kind of romance. In fact, they tend to reject that notion right off the bat. INFPs have a reputation, albeit a stereotypical and inaccurate reputation, as being perpetually melancholy, bittersweet, or just downright sad. I think this comes from the fact that they are highly attuned. They possess a heightened sensitivity to their own emotions. They can feel with a pronounced precision and nuance that is sometimes just beyond other types. So they can appear overly involved in their emotions when it's simply because their emotional life is deep and rich and warrants continual exploration. In a relationship, this is going to come into play in a big way. However, INFPs aren't necessarily extremely emotionally expressive and constantly gushing or crying. They can be surprisingly reserved or even stoic outwardly. Inwardly, they are regularly sailing around in a soup of complex feelings. So when in a relationship with an INFP, you need to be aware of this paradox, that you might not see the extent of their emotionality. With them, a placid demeanor conceals a passionate nature, seeing beauty everywhere. In nature, nothing is perfect and everything is perfect. Trees can be contorted, bent in weird ways, and they're still beautiful. In order to work well with an INFP, whether that's in a friendship or a romantic relationship, and in order for INFPs to feel connected to you, you need to have an insight into how they see the world. You need to be able to go for a walk in nature and understand why that might be very moving for them. You need to be able to get completely lost in music or pick apart the deeper meaning of lyrics or a passage from literature. Basically, being able to see beauty in all of its forms, especially in the simple and overlooked aspects of life. They really are poetic people, whether they try to be or not. If you are someone who is naturally more cynical towards beauty, then that might not be a good match for INFPs. Don't get me wrong, INFPs can definitely be pretty cynical about certain things, but in this particular area, it's very rare. INFPs would subscribe to the notion that heaven is under our feet as well as over our heads. Extroverted thinking. I don't think that scheduling is uncreative. I think that structure is required for creativity. INFPs have TE as their inferior function, which means it's something they're not the best at, but they do still value it. In the past, I've talked about the potential folly of focusing too much on trying to improve your weaknesses, because there's always going to be a cap or a ceiling on how good you can become at them, often to the neglect of working on your strengths and pushing them even further. Based on that, it can make sense sometimes to outsource your weaknesses to other people. This can be in the form of a teammate, a partnership, or indeed a relationship. This is part of the reason why socionics often cites the dual relationship as one of the best. So for INFPs, this would be ESTJs. They have the same functions, but in the reverse order. People often debate which types fit best together, and as is always the case, it comes down much more to where the person is at in their life and their level of maturity than it ever will to someone's type. TE is something I associate with organization, structure, systemizing, and particularly doing so externally. This can be in the form of planners, to-do lists, Excel spreadsheets, that kind of thing. There is this perception that those kinds of things are cold and clinical, but these things are actually essential for being successfully creative, which is often something INFPs greatly desire. So if you can, regardless of what type you are, embody those traits, this will naturally make you an excellent complement for INFPs, and there'll be a strong opportunity for synergy between you. If you're an INFP, then let me know down below in the comments your experience in relationships with the various different types. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and even consider hitting the dreaded notification bell. We've also recently set up a Discord server, so feel free to join that if you want to chat to people or just lurk in the shadows. The link is in the description below.